Awesome. I'm live. Hello. I am set up, I think, so that I can see everybody's comments. So let me just make sure everything is good. Checking it out. Okay. So week 1 of our Amimono crochet along. I'm so excited. We feel like we haven't talked to you guys in a really long time. And so I talked to Marley and I said, we told you guys, we've been completely inundated with website stuff. It has been crazy, but the website is beautiful. If you haven't checked it out, you need to. I'll make sure I put a link in the description box. But if you haven't checked it out, it's gorgeous. It was so worth all the work. If you've never done website stuff, the background stuff is not the fun part. We're creatives. We're not computer people. So that's not the fun part. But it's been so long. We feel so disconnected. I was like, we got to do something. Let's make something. So the Amimono, I don't even know how to say it. Amimono. I keep saying Amimono, but Amimono is one of Marley's first designs. And I've seen several of you mentioned that you have tried it before or you've wanted to make it. So I'm really excited. I think it's a great kickoff to summer project. I think it'll be a fun little thing to wear. Some of you, I've talked about how we just recently moved and we're close to the water now. And those breezy, cool nights, this will be the perfect thing for me to wear around town. I'm so excited to make this with you. So I know a lot of you have said that you are really excited about this. So I hope you'll hang out with me. I haven't even really dived in. I was just talking to Robin earlier, working on my gauge swatch. And so I'm diving in blind with you all, and I'm excited. Um, the number one thing we're going to talk about is how we have to make the gauge swatch, right? Anything we wear, right? Listen, I'm not a super fan of gauge. Okay. I'm not someone who's making a gauge swatch for everything I make, but every time I make something I'm going to wear, I make a gauge swatch. I've learned the hard way. This is Teddy, by the way. He's going to do this throughout the whole thing. So gauge swatch, super, super important. Trust me when I say the first time you make something that you spend hours pouring your heart into and it's either too big or too small and you cry, because that's what usually happens, you're going to realize, oh, yeah, I need to make a gauge swatch. Hi, good. Look, I've got so many of you joining me. Some of you, I can't see the name. For some reason, it's not showing me the names on Facebook, but I'm so glad you guys are here. I'm so excited. Nancy McCormick is here, Pat Bittinger. I'm so glad you guys are joining us. If you are not plugged into the Marley's Minions Facebook group, you need to get plugged in there. That's where we're really going to do all this. Any questions that you have, you're going to post them in there. I want to see what you guys are doing. I want to see what yarn you're using. I want to see your progress. I want to see all of it. So make sure you're sharing all that in there. I am using, this is Heatherly Sport from WeCrochet. This really pretty, it's called Sweet Bing. I don't know why that's the name of it, but it's a really pretty, like, dusty rose color, which I'm excited because I don't really have anything that's this color. And it's a merino wool acrylic blend. So it's like really nice to work with. It's got a great little halo on it too. And yes, of all the things that I could have picked for us to make together, I chose something with a really lightweight yarn and a small hook. I did that. But I think it's going to be great. I think you're going to love it. I can't wait to see what you guys are using for your yarn and the colors that you're using. And let's talk a little bit through this pattern. I'm going to share my screen with you just so that you guys can see what I see. Let me see if I can pick this up here. And you're going to see all my details that I wrote down, but we're going to move down here. By the way, the supply list, I did see some comments. I had a really busy day today, so I did see some comments. You guys were having a hard time finding the supply list. I will make sure I post that in the group for you all so that you can see that. And then I just basically, the pattern is free on the blog. I want you to go on the blog and check it out. I just pulled some details here so that I could go through this with you and just show you what we're looking at here. So you'll see all the sizes are here. Pro tip, you can highlight your size, whatever your size is, highlight it in a different color, whatever you got to do to make it stand out to you. And we are using an F hook. So itty bitty guy. That's what we're using. Or whatever it takes to get gauge. If you remember, you have to remember this. If you switch the yarn weight, you have to switch the hook. Just make sure that you are being cognizant of what hook you're using, what yarn you're using to make sure you're meeting gauge. So let's look at our gauge for this pattern. So we're doing 4 stitch repeats. I'm not even going to lie to you. I didn't know what the SR was for, but Robin helped me. So we're doing 4 stitch repeats and 8 rows equals 4 inches in this asymmetrical stitch pattern. Marley says it. Take time to save time. Check your gauge. So we want to make sure that we're checking our gauge on that. So if you scroll down on the blog, you'll see the pattern stitches, and we have this asymmetrical stitch pattern. I will let you know if you are on the blog now, the numbers on this are incorrect. Like I said, this was one of Marley's first designs. This is a very, very old pattern. You'll even notice, Robin and I were chatting, you'll even notice we're using chains for our double crochets. We know Marley doesn't do that anymore. She replaces those with that stacked double crochet, and you can do the same thing. Just because the pattern says chain 2 equals a double crochet, you don't need to do that. You can do a stacked double crochet. I, for one, 100% know that I'm going to do that. I just love the clean line of it and the way that it looks. I love the stretch of it. When you do those chains, oftentimes it just has that tight feeling to me. I like the stretch when you use the stacked double crochet. So I'll do that for that. But the thing I wanted to note is these numbers here are incorrect on the blog. So again, this was a really old pattern. It could just be, it was just missed. But who knows? It was years and years ago. But it'll say on the blog, I believe it was 4 plus 1. And it's not. We're going to do 7 plus 3. I will get that fixed on the blog as soon as I get off here. But I wanted to make sure that I told you here so that you knew and you weren't driving yourself crazy like I was trying to count it and make it work. But I will say, if you are using the correct weight and hook of yarn that the pattern recommends, I think it's you know what? I don't even know. Let me look here what the yarn was. I don't even know what weight it was. I don't even know what weight this is. I don't have my label. I think it's a 1. Robin, you're here, are you? Let me know. I think it's a 1 weight. Is it a 1? I'm not 100% sure. I'll wait for Robin to answer me. But if you're using the F hook and the correct weight of yarn, your chain, your foundation chain, is going to be really hard to count. Weight 2. Thank you, Terry. It's going to be really hard to count those chains, because when you're working your shells into these little tiny chains here, it's going to stretch out the chain next to it. So what Robin was saying is you could always chain 4 extra. You need to end up with 4 extra chains at the end once you're done your stitch repeats. So you can always chain 4 extra chains. That way you know that you're going to have the 4 extra, and then you can always undo your knot and pull the yarn back and redo your knot. So listen, we cheat. That's what we do. We cheat. We make it work. We do whatever we have to do to make the design work, right? So I'm working on my gauge swatch. That's what I'm working on now. But let's look at these. Let's look at this gauge swatch here. So this is what our pattern stitch is going to look like. This is the asymmetrical stitch. I love when you look at the pattern, Marley tells you not only how many stitches you should have, but she's going to tell you how many of these little shells that you should have, these little asymmetrical shells that you should have. Love that for us, because it's so hard when you're trying to figure out, okay, I've got my stitches, but do I have the right number of shells? So your setup row, you're working on these little asymmetrical shells. I don't know if you guys can see me and the screen or just the screen, but you're working on these little asymmetrical shells. Let me stop sharing my screen. Stop sharing. So you're working on these. You're going to be like your traditional little shells, and then you've got this one little extra hanging out here. And then you're working right into those chain 2 spaces on your next rows. Can you see that? Wonderful. Wonderful. So that's what we're working on today. I didn't get to anything else. I'm working on my gauge swatch. I had a really busy day. I want to know if you worked on your gauge swatches. We can see both of you. Can you see Robin? Or can you just see me and the screen? I don't know what's going on. Oh, Marley's here. She's not supposed to be here, but she is. Marley said the original yarn was a sport weight cotton yarn bamboo blend. Oh, you can use any yarn and hook that gets the gauge. Wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Where can I find the pattern? The pattern is on the blog. Let me put it here in the comments. Marley, let me pull the pattern link up for you. Let me look this up for you really quick. I can put it in there. Yes, it's right on the blog. It's free pattern right on the blog. We're not going anywhere else, just right here. I just put it right in the comments here for you so you can see it. Oh, you're on vacation in Florida. I'm just looking at everybody's stuff. There we go. Okay. So I just wanted to chat tonight. I just wanted to check on you, see what you were doing. Oh, Trueboo. Terry's using Trueboo. I like that. I like Trueboo. I like the way that it lays. I like the drape that it has when you make stuff with Trueboo. And I like the sheen. It has like a nice little shine to it. Oh. I'm sorry. I'm trying to read. I shouldn't be reading comments and talking at the same time because I can't do two things at once. But anywho, that's what we're doing. We're working on gauge swatch. I want to see your gauge swatches. Prove to me. Post them on Facebook. Prove to me you did your gauge swatch. I want to see it. Like I said, I am not a fan of gauge. I don't like gauge swatches. I don't like swatching. It's not my favorite thing to do. But always, 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 when I make something that I wear, I have to do a gauge swatch because I have made things without even attempting to make my gauge swatch. And they've either been too big, too small. I have a whole sweater that I made that is the cutest sweater in the prettiest color. And I made the entire thing and it's way too big. And once a project is done, like my excitement really just goes out the window. And so I don't ever remake them. So I just have the whole sweater that's enormous just sitting in a closet because I did not take the time to swatch. So make sure you just take the time to swatch. Terry's the only one I've seen say that she's using what yarn she's using. I'm not sure on yarn. I'll look for some weight too. I swatched mine up and worked up to the arm part. My goodness, you're fast. I'm using Stitch 101 in mint. Oh, mint's going to be a pretty color. That's going to be a really pretty color for that. Let me see. I'm trying to make sure I can see changing yarn. Why are you changing yarn, Pat? I want to know why you're changing your yarn. Tell me why. I did not get anything done today. So I'm like super impressed by you, Sarah, already being up to your arm part. I had a crazy day and I had every intention of working on some of it, but waiting on my WeCrochet order. Tanya, I will say that mine came in like 4 days, which was a lot faster than I expected. So I'm hopeful for you that it'll be here by the end of the week for you so that you can jump in and get started. And again, listen, I said I've probably mentioned 100 times now that this is unofficial and no pressure because it's summer. I don't need it to be any pressure for you. I don't need you guys to stress. This is just fun. This is just making something fun that you can wear during the summertime. It'll be great. Mine is celery. Oh, that's going to be a neat color. I like that. I have some sea pearl from Briar Rose Fibers. Sea pearl. I think that'd be pretty. But it's a fingering weight. So you can still use it even if it's a fingering weight. You just need to make sure that your hook size matches your yarn and you get gauge. So whatever you got to do, no matter how small you got to go down. I don't know how tight you crochet, um, what tips do you have if you don't get gauge? Oh man. So if you don't get gauge, typically it's because you're either crocheting too tight, you're crocheting too loose, or your hook is either too big or too small. Um, I typically will always, if my gauge is coming out or my swatch is coming out too small, I'll go up a hook size. If it's coming out too big, I'll go down a hook size and just keep reworking it. You don't want to measure too early, right? So like if I measure this now, my gauge is going to be completely off. So you do got to keep working it up. But you can tell kind of early on if it's coming out real small, you're probably need to go to a bigger hook. If it's coming out too big, you probably need to go to a smaller hook. I have a 3-weight and using the hook was too big, so I'm dropping down the yarn. Yeah, that's always an option too. If your yarn's not working, switch yarn. Um, I am really a serial stickler. Like I do what the pattern tells me. I use the yarn and the hook that I'm told so that I don't have to stress about that. But yeah, if you're really struggling, going up and down a hook size or just switching out the yarn. Um, what switching burgundy yarn bee mimosa. Oh, I like yarn bee too. Beehive, baby sport, and baby gray, or do another size of the pattern. Well, so that's great, but doing another size won't necessarily change your gauge. That's not going to switch your gauge. Switching sizes. So your gauge doesn't really have anything to do with size. Your gauge is essentially what you're going to need for your math to add up so that your size is correct. Um, you could, I mean, yes, it's going to be a bigger size if your gauge is off and your gauge is too big, but you might not have the right stitch count. Or if you're using a hook and yarn that don't match the pattern and you're like, oh, well, I'll just make a bigger size. And then you start following those numbers, it's going to get even bigger. So then you're going to wind up kind of in the same boat. So you always want to make sure that your gauge is, if not spot on, very, very close. um, I've had times where my gauge was not spot on, but very close, and I've been okay. But you just want to try to make gauge. That's what you want to do. 62% cotton and 30% rayon. Ooh, that's a good blend. That's a good blend. You'll really like that, Pat. I think that'll be great for a little sweater. Um, I I'm using this Heatherly Sport. I've never used it before. Um, wool is wool is typically something that keeps your temperature down, which I didn't know, and I find very strange, right? Because wool in the winter you wear to keep the heat on you, but in the summer it actually keeps you cool, which is an interesting factoid. So this is actually acrylic and wool blend. And I'm excited to see the drape. I think it's going to have a really good drape. And I really like this color. You can't really see it. I'm sorry. I keep pulling all the way down there, but I really like this color. I really like the way that it has like almost like that heather. Well, obviously it's Heatherly Sport, but that heathering to it, but it's like a dusty rose color. Ignore my chipped fingernail polish. It's like a dusty rose color. It's pretty. I like it. I thought about using, I don't know. I had all kinds of yarn in my stash that I was looking at, but nothing really seemed good. But um anyway, anywho, natural fibers. Yes, love natural fibers. I'm a big natural fibers. So this has worked for me. Hey, if it works for you, it works for you. You do what you got to do. Um, but I will say that I want to see everybody's gauge swatches. I need you to do it. I need you to show me that you did it, that you did that's your homework this week or today or the next couple days. Your homework is to do your gauge swatch. So for week 1, let me just make sure that I'm not lying here. Let me make sure I'm looking at my schedule. So week 1, we are working on the back. So by next week, and Sarah's already done it. Sarah's already there. She's just really kicking tail here. um, but yes, so by next week, we want to have the back done. That's our goal, is to finish the back. So I want to make sure that you did your gauge swatches. So I want to see those. That's your homework, is to put your gauge swatches in the Marley's Minions group so that I can see your gauge swatch. It's a really neat little pattern, though. I really like this asymmetrical shells. I like the way that it looks, and I like the way that it's working up, and it's almost like a, I don't know, like a weird little lattice. I like it. I like it. I like it. I like it. I need to go shopping. I only have 4 weeks. I know. What a shame. Isn't it a bummer when you have to go yarn shopping? It's my favorite. My husband says all the time, I can't believe you're buying more yarn. Don't you have enough yarn? I'm like, you just do not understand. That yarn is not for this project. That yarn has its own project. It just has not found its calling yet. I do highly recommend, though, this Heatherly Sport. I really think the Galileo would look really pretty too. The Galileo has like has like a pretty gloss to it. So I think that would look really pretty with this pattern. So if you get Galileo, if you're in the mood for that shopping, or if you're just going to your local yarn store, find something that you think will have a nice drape to it, a nice color to it. Like, I just think this pretty dusty rose is going to be gorgeous for a summertime little shawl. But anywho, on the gauge swatch, remind me what 4SR means. It's stitch repeat, and I'm just being fully honest with you. I didn't know what it meant either. I had to ask Robin. I don't lie, so I'm just being fully honest. I was like, Robin, it says that my gauge swatch is 4SR. What is SR? She said stitch repeat. So it is. It's stitch repeat. So you're doing this stitch. And again, just for anyone who's jumping on who maybe didn't catch the beginning, the numbers for the pattern stitches are incorrect on the blog. I'm going to get that fixed as soon as I get off here. It is a multiple of 7 plus 3. So for example, I started mine because you need 4 of these 4 shells. Okay. So it should be 31. I'm just going to tell you. You're just going to chain 31 to start. And again, when you make your shells, the beginning of any project is always the hardest part. Okay. Personally, that is what I feel. When you start your beginning foundation, it's always the toughest to get where you're going, right? So when you make your shells and your foundation chains, it's going to stretch out the chain next to it. That make sure you count that chain, because I kept goofing up. I pulled it out 4 times before I got on here because I kept goofing up my chains, and I'm like, I don't have enough chains. So 31 is what you want to start with for your gauge swatch. 31 chains, and then you'll just follow that setup there. The setup and the rows work perfectly if you have the right number of chains, and it says 4 plus 1, but it's 7 plus 3. We're going to fix that. So 31 chains, just do 31 chains and you will be good as gold. Is the ribbon to connect the buttons? I don't know. To be honest with you, I haven't gotten that far. I'm going to be honest. I am starting this blind. I'm going in blind. We picked it because a few people had mentioned really wanting to make it. It's one of Marley's first designs, and I thought it would be really fun for her to see a bunch of these made, kind of reminiscent of the past. She's been very nostalgic recently since we redid the website. Looking back, we had to dig deep. I mean, we dove back all the way to the very beginning of the blog, and just seeing how far her business has come. And even she is a designer. I mean, I've always looked at Marley as being just a very fantastic, well put together, clear, concise teacher and designer. And looking back at these patterns from years ago, you can watch her growth as a designer even through the years. And it's kind of fun and it's amazing. So she's been very nostalgic lately. So I thought this would be really fun. This is one of her first patterns. It's a great little piece for summertime. So it'll be good. It'll be good. Haven't looked at the pattern yet. We'll check there. Yes, it's all on there. And like I said, I'll fix all that stuff. On the website, the stitch pattern only, yes. So the diagram is only going to show you the 3, but it's 4. It is. So it's correct. All the words are correct. The stitch diagram is just showing you the stitch pattern. So it doesn't have the multiple or the 4th stitch repeat, but that is what you're doing is the 4th stitch repeat. I'm thinking of making an I-cord instead. Yeah, I haven't gotten that far as what connects the buttons. I didn't notice that it was ribbon. I thought in the picture that it was, and I'm looking on my iPad because my iPad's right next to me with the pattern pulled up. But I thought it was, I don't know. I thought it was just like a little piece that we made. But yeah, I probably won't use ribbon either. I did get my buttons. Hold on, let me show you my buttons. I did get these coconut buttons from WeCrochet. They're really, I like these. They're sturdy and they're like very neutral. So I thought these would look nice with this color. I thought that would go well together. So I did this little button. So anyway, I'm not going to keep you any longer. I just wanted to chat and say hi and how excited I am to make this with you. If you have questions, just put them right in the Facebook group. Your homework is to make your gauge swatches and just share them with me on Facebook so that I can see your beautiful work. Share your yarn. If you have questions, again, put them in the Facebook group. I let all the modmins know that we were doing this too. Some of them are going to join us. I'm really excited. They're fantastic. They'll help us answer any questions that we have too. So yay. Week 1, guys, week 1. And next week, I promise I'll be more put together and I'll actually have more work done than just part of my gauge swatch. And I will do the homework as well and share my gauge swatch with you. So thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited for this. This is going to be so much fun. I know that you come here for Marley, but I hope you hang out with me and have fun with me too. But have a great week and I will see you here next Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern. And I want to see your gauge swatches. Have a good night, guys.